All right, another day of practicing to get more comfortable talking in front of a camera. Um, and I want to pick another very recent thing that I'm a little bit uneasy about and just see what happens if I just talk about it. I set up my little plants here. I saw someone else do this and I was like, yeah, that's nice. Plants create a nice vibe. So I just had a call with a client and it's an awesome guy. It's actually a friend of mine too. And he had a rough couple of days. It's a startup, and he had conversations now with several investors. They had all the conversations lined up, and all the results of these conversations were, let's put it this way, not what he had hoped for. They were, in fact, pretty devastating calls, right? And that is how he showed up to our call in not the best state. And it was kind of very, like, I sensed that what he needed in this call was actually not so much advice, not so much helping him to analyze or kind of define the next steps, but it was more actually encouragement, right? What he needed was someone who kind of, hey, you've taken all this, what they've given you now turn it around and use it, right? And he needed someone who could in some way reset his energy in a way where he would be like, all right, I learned out of this, I just keep moving forward. But that was not what I gave him on the call, even though I kind of sensed like, this is what he needs most now. But instead, I, in a way, got pulled into his emotional maelstrom. And, I say emotional, maybe this is not the best word, but the general vibe was just not a positive one. And I wished I would have done something different, but I don't know how I would have done it. Like I still gotta reflect about that. But I think the most important thing that I could have done actually to have this conversation in a different way that would be more helpful to him would have been to not get pulled into his state, but instead, first of all, make sure that I remain in a good state, that I'm in a good place, and then pull him into that, right? So that he can act from a more resourceful place too. Instead, what happened was, he was very pulled down, and then I let myself be pulled down, and then of course it's more weight, right? So it's not both of us then needed to expend more effort into just staying afloat, so to speak. Now I'm using, metaphors here and images to draw a picture, but basically, what I wish would have been that, when we have a conversation, it's a little bit, even if it's a remote Zoom call conversation, right? It's a little bit like you let someone into your house. And when I let someone into my house and they interact with me, I would like to leave them in a state that is a plus, right? Where they walk out of that room in a better state than when they came in, right? And in that regard, I have absolutely failed in this last conversation. And inner critic kicking in, I'm like, why are you talking about this? Interesting. But maybe it's because of the judgment label where I'm like, I have absolutely failed in that regard, right? That's kind of a harsh judgment to apply to something. And then do this and record a video about it and upload it on the internet. And then it's like, well, why do you do that? But I think the purpose why I'm doing it is because I want to get comfortable talking in front of the camera, freestyle, without a pre-laid plan or script or anything like that. And even just like, for example, for this video, I'm really trying to kind of maintain quote unquote eye contact, even though, of course, I'm just looking at my screen here instead of, or the camera here instead of actually eyes. But, and just keep talking. Just keep talking. That's really my entire objective for this thing. Become more comfortable talking in front of the camera about pretty much everything, freestyle. And this reminds me of someone that I've known for a very long time. And one of the things that impressed me, or that for me was so outstanding and beautiful and inspiring was, so this was a very, very accomplished, successful person, right? Older than me already, but also like really a master of his craft in many ways, financially very successful, and also working in a field that his heart was really into. So this was someone who, where, when you say, there's that saying, if you do what you love, you will never work another day in your life. And he's very close to that. Like the work he does is very much something that he really enjoys doing and that he cares about. And so in that way, you could say he's very lucky. You could also say he's worked very hard to get to that point where now, or even back then already, this is many years ago, he had the good fortune to work on something that he really loved. Now, what I loved very much when I spent some time with him, and that stood out to me, was that whenever he encountered other people, many, many times he would leave them in a state that was better than they felt before they interacted with him. And oftentimes it was like tiny, quote unquote, meaningless things. In interaction with the cashier, right? Sitting there, scanning all the items, collecting the money, maybe having a tough day, right? Maybe there's been a series of stupid customers, right? And then he comes in and he makes a joke, a little compliment, makes them laugh, makes them smile, brightens up their day a little bit, right? He did that like he was a serial, how to say this, not a serial entrepreneur, but a serial good feeling initiator with all the people that he interacted with and the most random encounters, right? Sometimes it's just somebody, maybe sitting on a bench and having a sandwich, and he'd just walk by and say a little thing to them, and they'd say something back, and he'd say something again, and they'd beam, with whatever, delight, or we're laughing about a joke or something. So really like a plus in many ways, where he touched a lot of people emotionally in ways that just uplifted them. And it didn't require anything from him other than just doing it, seeing these people, and then finding that little thing that he could say that would brighten up their day. And of course, that is a skill, right? It's not easy to do that, but actually, we all have whatever we need to do that. It's a skill we can practice, right? And I've been practicing that ever since that time. And it's still a lot more to practice here. But that for me was like one of the my internal reference points for how fucking amazing human beings can be and how little it sometimes takes. And I think it is funny that so much of our life, we get caught up in situations where we don't do that, when it takes so little, right? But it's also because in some ways it does take something, but it is also and the inner critic is kicking in hardcore again right now. It's like, what are you talking about? Make your point. Actually, you already made your point. Now you're just like keep on waffling and waffling here. But whatever. Thank you for your feedback, inner critic. It is something where you don't just give, but you also get something in return, because when you brighten up someone else's day, when you make someone else happy, that it just comes back to you. And we are social creatures. We are hardwired for that. It's like it flows back to us. So it's a quote unquote investment with a great ROI, right? Because you make someone else smile, a complete random stranger, without any expectations of getting something back, but actually you immediately do get something back, because it feels good. It feels good to make someone else feel good, right? Especially if you don't have to give them a present, or you don't have to do a big heroic act. Sometimes it's just a little thing you notice about them and that you mention to them. And there's people who do this naturally a lot. And I always love these people. I always love hanging out with these people. And well, coming back to where I started with this video is there are people where you can walk into their room and you're in a shitty mood, and somehow they have that gift of brightening up your day. And I love these people, and it's a beautiful, beautiful skill that should be appreciated. And I think we all can practice it more. Inner critic, heavy attack again. It's funny. Yeah, the inner critic is like, oh, what are you talking about? You're just talking in front of a camera here, and you don't have an audience and all of that. So who do you think you are? And that is all fair and fine. But there is a good point in that. Because the reason why I am saying this is because I want to practice that more. Like this call just right now, in a way, there's something where nothing really bad happened on our call. We worked through our agenda. We got everything done. It's clear now what the next steps are, how we proceed, right? We have taken notes on what we can learn from these conversations he's had with the investors and how he can adjust and all of that, right? So we do have a game plan. In some ways, I guess if someone would just look at purely the transcript, they would say this is a fine call, right? But the emotional quality of the conversation and how he left the room and how I left the room was not great. And it could have been a lot better. And there's a little bit of pain in me that I feel like I missed something here. I did not, and I still don't see it, right? But I know it's there. I could have done something different to change that. And there are calls where you're like, it's an unpleasant call, and you just hang up and you're glad it's over and you move on with your day. Sometimes you have an unpleasant call and you hang up and you still feel shitty for a while. But this one was like slightly unpleasant call. I hang up and I'm like, what could I have done different here? And that's still in my mind, and I still haven't found it. But it is an interesting question, and I'm curious about it. And that's why I keep talking, because I'm like kind of cycling about this thing that I don't clearly see, but I see it's there. So I'm like, where is it? Where is it? And I keep talking and talking, but I'm not going to find it. And I think I've talked already for quite a long while now. Yeah, just let me look at this. It's 14 minutes. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I did my session for the day, and then next time will be another one.